What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celios Network for another week of the top 10 decks this week for March 21st. Salt Lake City Regionals just happened, the first North American Regionals to resume IRL events, and Andrew Kennett won the Masters Division with Arceus V-Star, Gengar Vmax, and Biboroll. And we'll be talking about that deck and 9 other archetypes today with deck lists for everything as we shortly recap the SLC results and look at the top 10 decks for this week. Before we get into that, shout out to PotownStore.com, the best place to get PTCGO codes, and CardTrooperGames.com, where you can find physical Pokemon TCG product. Be sure to use code CELIO for 5% off at both of those websites. You can share your own deck lists and view others at PokemonCard.io, and please check out the channel that I'm a part of, Beast Coast Pokemon. We're creating some great collaborative Pokemon content over there. Recently, we started a Road to Ranked for Pokemon Unite, which I'm a part of. Pokemon Unite's super fun to play. I'm having a lot of fun with the guys playing that and seeing how well we can do. So be sure to check out those videos. Like I said, we are going to start out with the SLC results. Here are the final day 2 standings from PTCGstats.com. All the decks here that has the little notes in parentheses next to them. That means you can click on that on the website and get the list until Limitless has the lists. So PTCGstats.com if you want to see everybody's lists. Mew VMAX did not crack into the top 8. There were 2 that made top 16, but there were 33 Mew VMAXs in day 2. They did above average, but they did not do well enough to make it into top 8 for a shot at winning the whole tournament. Finnegan Lynch brought Suicune, Ludicolo, Intelion, a deck that has fallen off in popularity a lot, but obviously not in strength. We saw a new Gengar variant come out with Arceus V-Star Gengar, which I think is the better way to play it. Zachary Cooper and Gabriel Smart both got top 4 and top 8 respectively, with a 59 similar card list of Gengar VMAX Houndoom, the typical way to build Gengar VMAX. Nick Moffat and Ian Robb both played Inteleon Dark/Bird boxes with a 2/2 Arceus V-Star in them, so not necessarily an Arceus V-Star deck, but using Arceus V-Star as a portion of the toolbox within that deck. Xander Perot with Arceus V-Star Inteleon or straight Inteleon, and 8th place was a different Arceus Gengar deck. They got DQ'd. The judges ruled that as marked sleeves. And Andre Giasin got moved up into 8th with Jolteon Vmax, but did not get to play in the top 8. So let's look at what the statistics said were the top 10 decks last week. And then we're going to talk about what I think the top 10 decks are this week. This will be my opinion. We are not basing it purely off of any statistic this week. So please let me know in the comments below your opinion on the top decks. So yeah, let's get into that. So last week, according to online tournament results, Mew Genesect was the first deck. That was the best deck. It was earning the most points, CP, whatever you want to call it. Winning tournaments, top 8ing tournaments. Arceus Duraludon was number 2 based on the statistics. Arceus Galarian Bird's number 3. And do note that that is the Arceus Galarian Bird variant that does not play Inteleon. There is no Inteleon engine in those kinds of decks. 4 was straight Arceus or Arceus Intelion, and those can have small dark packages in them. They could play water or dark. They could even play fighting and a Galarian Zapdos. The core of that deck is the fact that it plays a thicker Arceus line and the Inteleon support line. Number 5, Ice Rider. Number 6, Hoopamolt. Number 7, Jolteon Vmax. Number 8, Rapid Strike Malamar. Number 9, Durant. And number 10, Gengar Houndoom. So this was based strictly on statistics. I did not let my subjective opinion influence last week's top 10. If it did, Durant wouldn't have been on the list. Hoopamolt probably would have been lower. Ice Rider would have been lower. Suicune Ludicolo would have been on the list. Just a couple changes that I know off the bat would have changed for me last week. Going over to this week, however, taking the results into account, taking last week's and the weeks prior top 10 lists as kind of the template, and then also using my opinion on what I saw from this past week and what I think will be happening into this week's meta. Also note that personally, I don't believe in decks just disappearing, right? Mew Genesect wasn't in top 8. That is not going to affect its number 1 spot for me on the top 10 decks. What would, however, is if we go through Liverpool, if we go through the next regional, if we go through the European International Championships, and then Mew is still not earning top 8 points and minimal top 16, minimal top 32. If that happens, sure, Mew Genesect will obviously be coming down. But for now, Mew Genesect is the best deck in format. It's what is the format is revolving around. It's what the meta game is developing because of. So Mew Genesect still number 1. Arceus Intelion, number 2. Last week, I already thought Arceus Intelion was better than Arc Dora and Arc Birds, but the statistics were heavily in favor of the other 2 Arceus variants because those had been being played longer. Arceus Intelion, number 2 this week. Arceus Gengar, number 3 for me. If I was going to SLC, I would have played Arceus Gengar. I wrote about that in my Patreon. Talked a little bit about it in the videos. I'm not sure because at the time Arceus Gengar, like a few days ago, Arceus Gengar was not a meta deck, so I wasn't talking about it publicly too much. Number 4, Arceus Intelion Birds. This is different than Arceus Intelion. This is the list that Nicholas Moffat and Ian Robb played, which we'll be looking at a little later in the video. This is a toolbox style deck. Nicholas Moffat said he wants to call it Arceus Checkmate. I'm not too sure if I want to call it that on the channel just yet. We'll see if that catches on. But for now, Arceus Intelion Birds, I think, sums up what the deck is doing. It's a toolbox variant of a little bit of Arceus, Intelion Engine, Baby Galarian Moltres, Big Galarian Moltres, Big Galarian Zapdos. Got a lot of different things to do for a lot of different scenarios. Something important about their list is the Toughness Cape, which means the Galarian Zapdos can hit into an Arceus and then not worry too much about getting hit back for a one-hit knockout. Number 5 is Suicune Ludicolo. I already thought this deck was good. Finn proved it this week. Part of the reason why I already knew the deck was good is because Finn is a testing partner of mine, and I know how ridiculous he is with the deck, and I know how good the Cutter Tap, our list, was for it. So I kind of already knew about Suicune Ludicolo being better than everyone expected. And I have talked about that in the past, and people tell me Suicune Ludicolo isn't that good. And I say, well, people aren't playing it well enough. People aren't playing the right list. And this is just an example of that. So I don't think Suicune Ludicolo, however, is the second best deck just because it got second at the first big regional. I think it's pretty good. And I also think it's hard to play. And I also think now that people know Finn's list, maybe we would have to invent something else and innovate more for Suicune Ludicolo to be good again. Well, not good, but, finals good, potentially tournament winning good. Next is Gengar Houndoom, which kind of proved itself a little more this weekend, that it could run consistently enough to be a good deck. I still don't favor it in place of Arceus Gengar, because I think Gengar Houndoom is a little more clunky and definitely gives you less options. I prefer my decks to have options. 7, Jolteon Vmax. Last week it was 7 according to the statistics. This week, according to my opinion, it's 7. It's a good deck. It's not insane. It's not bad. Just good. Next is Arc Duraludon. I would have put this lower last week if last week was based on my opinions, but Arc Duraludon fell off after after it lost its surprise factor and its novelty factor, and people just started playing Echoing Horn. 9, Rapid Strike Malamar. Best single prize deck if you don't count the Inteleon Arceus Bird deck as a single prize deck. Rapid Strike Malamar is good. It's hard to play. I think the Inteleon version has been proven to have the higher ceiling of potential and skill influence. And of course, if you can play it well and it sets up fine, then it can outtrade the decks above it that are worth, their attackers are worth 2 and 3 prize cards. And last, I'm putting Arceus Beedrill variants here as number 10. They're being underplayed, and they're overperforming for how little they're being played. There was the Arceus Beedrill Flygon Sandaconda Vmax that got 9th, I believe. And then there was also an Arceus Beedrill Flygon Rapid Strike Urshifu Vmax in day 2. I'm not sure if there were any of those without the VMAX lines, just Arceus, Beedrill, Flygon. But we've seen those around plenty on YouTube and some tournament results and stuff like that. But now we're going to go ahead and look at all the lists for these that I've picked today. Some of these lists will be mine. Some of them will be from tournament results. I'll tell you along the way. But yeah, this is my top 10 for this week. At number 10, we've got the Arceus Beedrill Flygon variants, or Arceus Beedrill variants, and they typically have Flygon because it fits with the energy typing. This is from Charlie Lockyer and Charlie Kerr. Charlie Lockyer placed 9th, I believe 10th before the DQ, and then he got moved up with this Arceus variant, including Sandaconda Vmax, which is a fighting type. The V and Vmax can hit for one-shots on opposing Arceus. The Vmax can hit for a one-shot on opposing, opposing Gengar Vmax and opposing Jolteon Vmax. I actually think this would have done insanely well if it made it into top 8. This could have actually, yeah, the only deck this would have struggled against in top 8, I think, was Suicune Ludicolo. Everything else it would have done really well against. I think these decks are way better than they're being given credit for. They kind of look like fun decks or meme decks just because there's a stage 2 in it with a situational supporter, but it's actually so easy to use Mustard. It's really easy to get into it. And it's also a draw supporter. It's not just a supporter that's cheating out your Beedrill. So I think this deck is better than it's being given credit for. It's a little tricky to play. I wouldn't say it's insanely hard to play, but it's definitely a little tricky, and it takes getting used to because it has things in it that are unique to it. But if it looks interesting to you, if you're interested in a toolbox deck and the others didn't appeal to you, this might be the one for you. Beedrill's so good. It knocks out anything with special energy. That's double turbo. That's fusion. Hiding Dark, Single Strike, whatever. I think this deck has more potential than it's being given credit for. Next at number 9, we've got Rapid Strike Malamar. This is Tord's list. He played this in the Metafy Online Regionals a couple weeks ago. He got 9th in that tournament, bubbling top 8. So 2 9th place decks in a row here. I didn't even do that on purpose. What about that? Not much to say. Malamar's Rapid Strike Tentacles can hit for 280, 320, etc. It's not exactly a skill-intensive deck because you can outplay your opponent, but it's a skill-intensive deck in the fact that if you sequence well, and know how to form your combos to get the most amount of Rapid Strike cards in your hand, you can really, really do well with the deck. So I think it gives a lot of room for good players to do well with it in that regard. And seeing Tord championing the Intelion version has kind of solidified my opinion in Intelion being the better version now. Next here we have Arceus Dora at number 8. So Arceus Dora, not falling completely out of the top 10. It's still a good deck, and if people stop respecting it, then it can just be incredibly good all over again. My list plays more healing than some other lists. I have the 2 Hyper Pots and the 2 Crystal Caves. Still keeping the 2 Collapse Stadium, and most of the rest of the list is still intact. Not much else to see other than the healing cards. We've got Jolteon Vmax from the 8th place finisher from SLC. This is the same list my mom and I have been playing in online events, except you just cut the 3rd Elemental badge for an Ultra Ball. Yeah, I think actually the guy said that he took this from an online event that somebody won, and then I think that list was like 1 or 2 cards off of mine. But yeah, so personally I like it without the 3rd Elemental badge and with an Ultra Ball because that's one more out to Jolteon V on turn 1. And I also like Escape Rope in this deck in place of the 4th level ball, I believe, for my exact list. But yeah, so Jolteon, not just list, but Jolteon as an archetype in general. It's great against decks not playing Manaphy. I think it's really good against like the Arceus Dark Box birds type thing. Against Dark Box itself, against Malamar, against Suicune Ludicolo, if that's going to be popping up again, it's good against that. And then it has like 50-50s against Mew, against Arc Intel. I think it's still a great deck. I think the internet got a little bit negative about it recently and maybe nerfed its popularity. Great deck though. Next, we've got Straight Gengar, or Gengar Houndoom, whatever you want to call this one. This is from Zach Cooper and Gabe Smart, top 4 and top 8. One of them played 3 Earn and 4 Ultra Ball. The other played 4 Earn and 3 Ultra Ball. So they were just back and forth on that. 59 cards. Plays the Stonejourner as a fighting type Pokemon. That's good against Arc, Jolteon, other Gengars, etc. And Gengar just does a whole bunch of damage. Notably, they played Tool Jammers instead of Choice Belts. Tool Jammer a lot of times is going to do the same thing as Choice Belt if it's getting rid of your opponent's Big Charms effect, and it can also stop air balloons, elemental badge, things like that. Here we've got Finnegan's Suicune Ludicolo list. A lot of spicy stuff in here. The only supporters are Melanie and Raihan, because you don't want to ever play any supporters that aren't Melanie and Raihan. If you're doing so, you probably lost the game already. 4 cross switchers as the gusting effect, an echoing horn because echoing horn is broken, 1 choice belt, 1 cape of toughness. The cape of toughness helps against Arceus and it helps against Duraludon. Here we've got Nick Moff's and Ian Robb's Intelion Bird Arceus deck, Arceus Checkmate. Let me know what we're calling this thing. I just want to make sure that it's differentiated from Arceus Intelion because it's not Arceus Intelion. There's no Charon, there's 2 Claras, lots of differences. But this list showed that it takes a lot of knowledge of your deck and your matchups and just overall skill to pilot. Watch some of the streamed games from Nick and Ian. They were really, really good to watch. I think this deck is a lot of fun, and I have not dove in. I haven't tried it out myself yet. But I definitely plan to because it looks fun and challenging to play, having answers to just about anything with the prize trade of Arceus V-Star being pretty good against single prize decks if they can't one-shot you. You've got the Galarian Moltres to have a really large attack during the end game, and also good against Dark Weak Pokemon, as is Galarian Moltres V. Galarian Zapdos V going to be good against Arceus Jolteon Gengar Vmax. And then you even have the Shady Dealings Aqua Bullet attack at your disposal due to the 1 Water Energy and Raihan. Might actually want to see 2 Raihan in this list myself. I think one of the games when Nick prized his 1 Raihan, it like closed him out of the game in top 4, I want to say. But very good list and very good performance. Personally, I think when I try it, I'll try it with 2 Raihans. But I think this is a list and a deck concept that we've already seen back in the Brisbane regionals, and we'll continue to see people innovate and try new things with it. Next is Arceus Gengar Bibarel. I did not expect people to be bringing this this weekend, honestly. I was thinking that since my team didn't feel like we had perfected the archetype yet, we might just save it for Indiana or something. But here we go. This is what I believe to be Drew's list. Now, he hasn't posted his list publicly anywhere, but I made up a list that was about like 5 cards off, and then a friend watched the stream back and came up with this list. So if when Drew finally posts his list, if this turns out to be incorrect, I do apologize, but this is the closest I could get to his list to give you guys just a representation of what the Arceus Gengar list may look like or does look like, if we did get it right here. But important inclusions are the Hyper Potions, which you'll see used in the finals match if you watch the stream, the Tool Scrapper, which you'll see used in the finals match if you watch the stream, and the Collapse Stadium, which you'll see used. Those were all important cards in the finals match. And what I like about this list, it is very plain in the Pokemon lineup and the supporter lineup. Definitely very techy in the item and stadium choice. But something I like about it in its plainness is that Drew played no bad starters. He played 4 Arceus, 3 Gengar, and 3 Bidoof. We don't have any tech Pokemon that you don't want to start with. We don't have Lumineon. We don't have Crobat. We don't have Eldegoss. We don't have anything like that. And I think that kind of consistency really, really just helps, really helps your win percentages and your overall like good starts. Obviously, over the course of a 2-day event where you played 14 rounds of best of 3 and then best of 3 single elimination up into the finals, that's a potential of 17 times 3 being 51 games. Having no bad starters for all of those games, that sounds great to me, and is a strategy I don't see people using enough in their deck building for regional events or even online events of more prestige. But I do think we'll be seeing people thinking a lot more about their deck building and practicing more now that IRL events are back, and those typically matter more to people than online events do. At number 2, we have Arceus Intelion, or straight Arceus. This list was played by Rahul, Xander, Isaiah Bradner, and some other notable top players. I like a lot of the things in here because if you guys have been paying attention to my streams on YouTube, I've been preaching about the problems with straight Arceus decks. People not playing Pal Pad, people not playing Choice Belt, people not playing Zigzagoon. All those things are addressed here and more. They added Bidoof Bibarel for actual draw support instead of just direct searching out one or two cards. They added more Ultra Ball because, you know, look at us. We were out here playing with like somewhere between 1 and 3 Ultra Ball, depending on list. They jammed that baby up to 4, and that's how you do it because you want to get turn 1 Arceus. Also, the Crobat for that turn 1 Arceus plus energy attachment. Playing 3 Path to the Peak. Personally, I do like having that collapsed stadium, but I get it because Path of the Peak is very important to for the Mew VMAX matchup. And Sydney as that spicy inclusion. Look at your opponent's hand, discard up to 2 in any combination of tool cards, special energy, and stadium. If you do that combined with Path of the Peak, that could be very, very good against Mew VMAX. And the titan of the format, Mew VMAX, it was hated out of top 8. 2 people got into top 16 with it, but nobody in contention for first place at the end of all of the Swiss rounds. This is my personal list right now that I'm rocking on PTCGO. Just switched 1 or 2 cards out from Natalie Millar's list from Brisbane 2 weekends ago. Playing that third stadium. The old cemetery is just kind of like an arbitrary third stadium. You could play Crystal Cave as well if you're expecting Jolteon decks to be popping up again. Old Cemetery just seemed like the, the most like, okay, this is good, can't be bad in any situations, we might as well put it in. I just want an extra stadium to bump Path. That's kind of how that made it into there. And those are the top 10 decks this week in the Brilliant Stars standard format of the Pokemon trading card game. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like and a comment about what you think the top 10 decks are. What do you think of my opinions? Should I just stick to statistics? Do you like hearing my opinions? Let me know what y'all think. Hope y'all got to enjoy the SLC stream this past weekend. It was great to watch from home, and hopefully I'll be back out there competing myself soon. And good luck to anyone watching this who is playing in the Liverpool regionals this weekend as well. So hope you all have a good day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.